hello everyone joining. Let's hopefully see their amazing faces. I can only see our panelists at the moment, but not necessarily a bad thing. So I'll start. And I'll just say, if anyone can't hear me, can't see any of our panelists, then please put something in the chat and we'll try and sort that out as soon as possible. So we're about to start this very first virtually speaking Q&A session. I've been speaking to my amazing hosts, Kate Wood, Mandy Sinclair, and Rachel Morgan Trimmer. We kind of had a little practice session, and we're quite excited about this. You know, it's been cool speaking to each other. So I'm going to do very brief introductions. There is some Q&A support. So one of the benefits of us doing this, cameras will be offering. I'm just getting instructions. Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So just being told that everybody else will have their cameras turned off, but they will be able to see us four for now. So we can talk about how people feel about that another time. But thank you for that, Natalie. So we've been introducing ourselves to each other, getting used to the tech, and we're about to start. So one of the things I let people know is that the reason why we picked this as a topic was that myself and Natalie, who does a lot of marketing for Assenty, we've been running some polls around remote networking, and these are the poll results we got through. We ran a poll that said, remote working has become a reality, but what is your biggest concern around our new way of working? And the winner of that poll, there were 4 options: productivity, work-life balance, loss of face-to-face contact, and not having the right tech. The winner of those 4 options was the loss of face-to-face contact. And so in this new dawn that we're all living in this new age that we're all living in, I thought it would be worth starting with looking at how this loss of face-to-face contact is impinging on people's mental well-being and how they're coping with the circumstances that we all find ourselves in. So I'm Chi-Chi. I set up a company called Assenty. I'm a developer, and I'm trying to create a startup that makes software for events, and it's going well. And one of the things that I've been trying to learn to do is sort of engage with people around social media and specific content for events, and that's the sweet spot Assenty lives in. We help event organizers get insights before events happen and use that to build a momentum and buzz around the event on social media, hopefully getting more ticket sales for them in the process. So that's me. Moving on now to Kate.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Chi-Chi. So my name's Kate Wood, and I'm MD and co-founder of Engage Your People. So like Chi-Chi, I'm running a tech startup, and so we do. We've got an employee engagement platform, so to make sure that you can communicate with all of your employees wherever they are through monthly one-to-ones, through newsfeed. We make sure through the use of intelligent sentiment words that you can understand when your employees are feeling valued and cared for and when they're not. It helps drive performance, and it also helps manage performance in businesses so that you can progress the people who are doing well, and also can help people to performance management, people who need that extra support as well. So that's the software as a service, and alongside that we do a service which is culture as a service, which is a bit like consultancy. So we'll go in and support businesses in improving their culture. I worked previously, before I had my own tech startup, for a big tech business called Chess, who were the Sunday Times #1 company to work for in the UK, and were in the list for 11 years in the Sunday Times. So it's that methodology which I've taken out to other businesses. So, yeah.
Fascinating. That's really interesting. Thanks for that, Kate. Over to you, Mandy.
Yeah, hi. So I'm Mandy Sinclair. I am now a life coach and a small business coach. My background is I've spent about 30 years, but that makes me sound really old, so I try not to say that, in large corporates in financial services. I'm an accountant way back when by profession. I've worked in operational roles and change management roles. But I always suffered from a lack of self-esteem and self-confidence, even though I was kind of on the outside doing really well in senior roles. Inside, I found it really hard. About 3 years ago, I had my own coaching, and it just transformed my life. So I then started my own journey, and a year ago, I left corporate life and set up my own business, and I am loving life. I'm helping clients beat their own self-confidence challenges, find out what they really want in life, and also helping small business owners get there as well. So I have a huge interest in how we help ourselves be the best people we want to be and help us get through this crisis in the best way we can.
That's great. Sorry, I'm getting messages, so I'm responding to them. So someone says I'm not very loud, so I'll turn myself up as much as I can.
Okay.
And over to you, Rach. That was amazing, Mandy. I'm really pleased to hear that, and to hear that the first time. We've not been able to talk and meet each other properly, so this is all new to me as it is to our participants. So over to you, Rach.
Hi, Chi. Thank you for inviting me. I am a neurodiversity coach and consultant. So part of my job is going into workplaces to help them understand and manage their neurodiverse employees. And that means people with ADHD or autism or dyslexia or dyspraxia and so on, or a mixture of those things. And it's not just about how to manage and adapt to neurodiverse people, but it's about celebrating what they bring to a company as well, because all of us have strengths as well as challenges, and the strengths do tend to outweigh the challenges in most cases. I am autistic and I have ADHD, so I understand firsthand what it's like. And I also work as a coach, which means I work one-to-one with individuals, usually neurodiverse, but not always. So I help them in their career or their business or whatever it might be, using the tools that I've developed to cope with my conditions. I use those tools for those other people to help them cope with the things that they need to do day in and day out. And I'm currently working from home like everybody else. I've been working from home for 15 years. And I'm now doing it while homeschooling, which is a challenge.
Yeah,
I bet it is.
Your input regarding that, and we're kind of doing really well with time. This is brilliant. So I'm going to touch on the homeschooling aspect and sort of the experiences that you've had and the expertise that you've had within your professional life with basically tutoring people and guiding people through getting the best out of their teams, whether they have neurodiverse people in there and struggling or not. So it'd be good to hear those when we come round to each person speaking about what they do. We're doing that quite quickly, but we're starting with Kate for that. So what could you tell us, Kate, about HR and remote networking? I'm very intrigued by this. How do employees start actually using some of the tips you've developed with your startup now?
Yeah, so I think we've been running, last week we were running webinars every day to support businesses who were new to remote working, so to support them, to enable them to then be able to support their people. And I think we were breaking that down into about 4 or 5 categories, which I can just run through now. I think, first of all, for people who are going to be working from home, it's absolutely key that people have the right environment to work in wherever that is possible. And I know that that's not possible for everybody. If you live in a 1-bedroom flat, it's going to be really unlikely that you've got a lot of space. You know, you could have now 4 or 5 people in your home working. I know that's what we've got at our house, and it does prove challenging. So what we've been really advising people to do is to be open about that, speak initially with the other people you live with, and try and get some plan and structure about who's going to work where, when they're going to work, and so you can get some sort of routine in that. And routine is something that you'll hear me talk about a lot, because I think it's key to successful home working at the minute. Obviously, people need the correct technology, so whether that's cloud phone system, whether that's Microsoft Teams, whatever technology you and your business use, it's really worth, if you don't feel comfortable about that, owning up, being honest to whoever's in charge of that in your workplace, or speaking to your team leader about it and getting some support. So we're really advising businesses to, if you've got people in your business, and you will have, who are obviously really tech savvy, getting them to perhaps buddy with the less tech savvy people. So it looks like Chi needs a buddy to buddy with the less tech savvy people, to help them to make sure that they've got everything that they need to work. Once you've got your tech working and you've got your environment working, I think for me it's about absolutely what I would call fierce communication. So making sure that as people who might be team leaders or managers in businesses, that they are keeping that communication rigorous and regular. So having daily huddles with teams, you know, people need to have that regular contact. People are struggling with not having face-to-face contacts, and Gigi's survey showed that. And I think making sure that things are diarised, so that things are in the diary, so that people can have those daily huddles with the team, so they're getting to talk to other people, making time as well for informal communication and team building. So whether that's quizzes or, you know, jokes, or, you know, I know we've been talking a lot about what we've been watching on television, which is not something that I'd probably normally talk about. You know, if you've started a book club or whatever things, extra activities you're doing, allow people in the workplace to have that time to do it, and allow them to have those calls that they might not normally have done. Normally, businesses are looking at people being productive all the time and working all the time, and they're not taking into consideration now the time that people would have spent with informal chat about what they're having for the dinner or what they did last night. And it's really key that you allow team members to still be able to do that, making sure that people have clear expectations about what they're going to achieve, making sure that if people are new to the business or uncertain, we're talking a lot about having buddies, making sure that people have got people who they can turn to, making sure that if people have got concerns or question and answers, people are going to be concerned about the work. I think a lot of people are concerned about losing the job or what the future of their own job might look like at this time. So making sure that people have clarity on when announcements are coming out about what's happening with coronavirus and how it's impacting where you work, and making sure that people understand when that announcement's going to be and when they're going to hear from people, what platform that's going to be on, and giving them that option to have those questions. Obviously, my platform is about monthly one-to-one, so I'm always going to recommend that people have that. But I think that now more than ever, it's really, really key that people are having that regular communication with the team leader. People thrive from having praise and feedback, and it's making sure that those things aren't the things that get forgotten about. I think for team leaders, if there's any on the call, you can often be being dragged into different meetings about the strategy of the business and things like this at this time, but it's really key to keep the regular contacts with the people that work for you as well. And just, I'm really talking a lot to people about getting people into that routine, making sure that they are having the regular breaks and allowing them to do that. I know last week I was struggling. I was thinking I should still be focusing for 4 or 5 hours at a time, you know, and not maybe, you know, still sitting at my desk. And I don't know why, because it's just not productive. I think really an hour and a half is the longest you're going to be able to focus for. And then making sure you can try and get some fresh air wherever you can. I know that while people are still allowed exercise breaks, it's all about, you know, supporting the team members on, you know, exercise breaks that they can have, and talking about that, really encouraging people to think about what they might be eating while they're at home as well. I know lots of companies offer, you know, free water and free fruit, and those things now might not be available to people at home, and it's about seeing how you can support people with that. People's sleep patterns will be impacted because the routines have changed. So again, it's about talking to people about how best, you know, to try and keep with the same sleep patterns and things like this over months, which, you know, it looks like we could be working from home for months. These things can really change and really impact on people. And with regards to, go on, sorry.
I mean, partly because people have asked me to turn myself up, and so this way I can tell if my slightly gawky, awkward movements before have actually improved the sound that you're getting from me. I wanted to ask a question. So I wondered how you're coping with it as a team. Some of these things you've talked about, these tactics you've mentioned, how do you implement them? Because like I said, I'm also a developer, so I'm still quite used to being in meetings in the day, and I've noticed we're doing a lot more quizzes during the day, you know, to get people to feel like we're still in the office. So how do you do that? I'm trying my utmost. I'll project my voice, so if I'm too loud for any of you guys, please let me know. But I think the panelists think I'm good. So
I think it depends what tech platform you use. So, you know, I'm really familiar with Microsoft Teams. My my platform is going to be integrated with Teams, so I know that really well. And you can create chat rooms in there, you can have space where people post good news stories, what are the silver linings of working from home, and getting people to post and share stuff that's not just about work. And I think that's really key. I think for me always is about going out to your team members and find out what's working for them, because what you can't retrofit is the office environment into something that's completely different now. So you have to find out, and it'll take a couple of times for people to work it out. Things like quizzes and posting online, and some people don't even feel comfortable going on a video call, and so they shouldn't be made to go on a video call if that's not what they feel. People don't feel ready to show other people who they work with the inside of the home. Maybe they've got the laundry out and they've got the Christmas decorations on top of a shelf, and that for them might seem intrusive. So for some tech platforms, you can use blurred backgrounds. You can on Microsoft Teams. I'm not sure if you can on some of the others. That's fantastic. So get people to do how they feel comfortable. If you're a team leader, showing up without your makeup and in your hoodie, and if that's going to make other people feel comfortable as well, I think that's really good. I think making sure that people aren't feeling bad about and apologizing about having dogs and kids in the background. Celebrate that. Get pictures if people feel comfortable, if they've got the dogs in the room and the kids in the room, and it is all a bit more chaotic than perhaps it would have been. I think that's the kind of thing that people need to do. I think we can't pretend that we're working under normal circumstances, because it isn't. And I think that's you need to people's anxiety levels have heightened massively, and I think getting people to acknowledge how they feel and ask for help and just talk about what they might be worrying about, seeking recognized sources to look for facts. So encouraging people in your organization, if they do feel a bit anxious, to mute keywords on social media or mute WhatsApp groups that are making things into a frenzy. I think, simple things like creating a little bit of a team playlist on Spotify. So you might all be working separately, but you're all listening to the same music and you're getting to share recommendations with people and learn something different. Not everybody feels comfortable talking about things like mindfulness and meditation or even exercise that might help them at this time. So it's about reaching out and thinking what will help them. And I think it's really about keeping that open, having calls with friends and family members rather than just cancelling events, which I think anyone who's recently logged onto the House Party app will be having a great time with that, because it's a really easy thing to use. And I think finally, before I finish, I think it's about always bearing in mind the most vulnerable people in your organisation. So I used to, when I was director of culture for it was a cross-site business with 7 different sites, lots of different types of people, and I ran an extra love list where I would keep a list, it was confidential, of the people who needed a bit of extra love, and call it the extra love list. And if you can, send perhaps parcels out if that's appropriate, but also think about what might be impacting them at this minute at their home life. If people were having a difficult time already, they're going to be having a harder time now, chances are. And so it's about bearing in mind those most vulnerable people, people who might have already been, struggling with the mental well-being, who may, have been in an unsettled home life, poverty, anything like that is going to be heightened at the minute. I think it's about pulling on the resources that you already have. So if you have a benefits package, seeing if there's anything on your benefits package that you might not have utilised before, which now might help you in this situation, and sort of sticking together and trying, it sounds easy, but trying to be patient. Everyone gets a bit annoyed with the co-workers, and if they're being a bit annoying, realise that everyone, is in a bit of an unusual situation. So that was really would be mine, is just thoughtfulness, kindness and consistency. And I think if you kind of stick to that and keep getting feedback week after week and having that regularity, then people can get through it.
That was actually really good. I've made a few notes, so I'll touch back on them when we do Q&A at the start. And I will show people, I got this thing off the internet. I was so worried it wouldn't arrive on time. And it has, but it doesn't work with my phone or my computer because it looks like it's a Windows-only lapel mic. So, but I will for the next one, and there will be a next one. I'll be set up with a headset. So I apologise to people that can't hear me. I'm doing what I can to increase the volume on my end. So apologise to guys who can hear me because I'm shouting at my phone now. But that was really, really helpful, Kate. That was particularly helpful because there's certain things in what you said, and I won't go into it now, that indicated that patience, everyone has at the moment, some patience really, to adjust to the new way of working. And
Yeah.
I'll move us on to Mandy, because next, one of the things that we're dealing with in this environment is keeping motivated. So you've got a new way of working, you've got new expectations from you as someone who works, but you're doing it from home. How do you manage that?
So I think the first thing that I really want to say is, and Kate touched on some of this, is everybody's going to be dealing with this in a different way. What we're effectively experiencing is a form of grief because we've suddenly had, our way of life just taken away. And some people will adapt to that much quicker than others. So my key message to everybody listening is, whatever you are feeling right now, it's okay. So what motivated might look like for one person at the moment might be, for someone else, it's just, I can get out of bed in the morning. Whereas for someone else, it might be that they're smashing out 8 hours of work in a day. So I think the key thing, and I really loved what Kate said about the, was it the extra love list?
Yeah.
There will be people that are stuck very much at kind of the first stages of denial and anger about what's going on and are really, really struggling, where there are other people that have kind of gone, oh, okay, and move it forward, and they're in a different place. And it's really important that both an employer tries to find out where someone is, but equally you try and tell your employer where you are as best you possibly can. Reach out for the help that you need and say what you need. I'm finding very much, even for myself, and I've done a lot of work on myself, right, that for me right now, it's one day at a time. I do not know what's going to happen next week or the week after, and trying to think too much about it takes me into anxiety and kind of the future, because there's no questions I can answer. So I am, very, very vocal at the moment. It is one day at a time, because in today I've got certainty. So in today, for motivation, I can set myself, and I do it the night before, 3 key priorities for the next day. Keep it simple, just something. And I posted the other day, something for my heart, something for my mind, and something for my body, ideally. So it's kind of like, what's keeping me going is my early morning walk. I get out before most people are up, because I'm a lark. And I'm out there and I clear my head. It's amazing what's happened in springtime in the last week, and I think the birds are louder, there's less people around, and I'm very, very aware of that. So I use that to kind of clear my mind, and a bit of mindfulness first thing in the morning. But it also gives me some exercise, so I feel better and I don't feel as trapped. Now that's different for everybody, but whatever works for you, try and do it. Not everybody wants to listen to Davina on a YouTube channel, but some people, that's brilliant. Other people would rather do some yoga. Some people want to get out, whether it's for a cycle or a run, or I know a lot of people that have started Couch to 5K, so I would imagine Amazon's delivering a lot of trainers at the moment. But it's like, do something that works for you there. Do something for your mind, and that might be your work, it might be something on top of your work, right? Something that helps you not feel so trapped, because the real danger with working from home is that you let work fill up all of your day and you never feel like you've got away from it. So I always try and recommend that even if you're cramped for space and you can't work in a different location, pack your stuff away at the end of the day. Set yourself an end point and pack it away, and then do something different. Because I know a lot of people in the first few days, they were on and off their emails all through the evening, and they wouldn't have done that before. Some people do that anyway, but a lot of people wouldn't have done that. So I would really encourage you, pack it away and do something for you. A lot of people have gained time in the day because they're not traveling. Now that has a downside, as we talked about before, because you haven't got that switch off. If you're used to kind of decompressing in the car before you walk through the door to your other half and children, and now you open the door from the spare bedroom or something and they're there, think about what you need to decompress for your sake and for their sake. Because if you've just walked out of a really stressful meeting and your 5-year-old's on the landing desperate to show you their picture, they're maybe not going to get the response you'd like to give. So think about what you need.
Yeah.
That might be listening to some music or something before you come out of your room. Pack your stuff away, play a song that lifts you up or something like that, so that when you do walk out, you are out of work mode and you're ready to participate in what else is going on in your house if you've got people in the house. So I would really think about that and be creative. You know, there are so many things sprung up online. It's almost overwhelming what's available online. But if you've got that hobby you've always wanted to take up, excuse me, but never had time, now's the time, right? Because a lot of people have got an hour or so back, or sometimes 2 hours back a day because they're not traveling. So get online, and you can maybe try something a bit more anonymously than, you know, if you've been too nervous to go for an evening class or do something like that, you may be able to do it kind of in the peace of your own home and try things. But I think if we focus a lot on what we can do rather than what we can't do, because that's what our brains automatically go to, right? I can't do all these things. I can't see my friends. I can't go out to a restaurant. I can't go for a run twice a day. I can't do those things. You feel negative. You feel trapped. You start wanting to rebel, you know, and that can really start a very negative cycle of emotions. Whereas if you try and think about these 3 things each day, what am I going to do for me? It's an achievable size of list. It just helps you feel a little bit more in control. But I plan today and tomorrow. I'm not doing any more than that. My diary's got other things in, but I focus on today and tomorrow because I know what's going on. And I think the other key thing is there is so much static electricity kind of in the air at the moment. If you've ever had anxiety challenges or suffered with stress, you just naturally, everything is heightened right now. So really think about what coping strategies work for you. I'm limiting my time on social media. I'm limiting my time on the news. I get, you know, try and just one or 2 bulletins a day, and then try and focus on things that are in my control, because I can do something about that, whether it's in my business or for my clients or something personally for me. That's what's really working for me.
That was really helpful, and I'm grateful you did that so eloquently, because I think in between trying to show you my microphone, I skipped the way the agenda was supposed to be working. It was actually supposed to be Rachel, but this is a nice nice segue into kind of talking about working from home, navigating the lockdown with children, and like Mandy's just said, how do you do that switch off? You know, if you've got young people at home and you're working from home, how do you prepare yourself, you know, for the child on the landing after you come up from a call or a meeting on Zoom? How do you do that?
Well, it's excuse me.
And you can introduce yourself, by the way, before you start. And this was just my segue into kind of your topic on self-isolating and working from home, bearing in mind that you're doing this with 2 young children.
Yes, that's right. So it is nice to be able to switch off and calm down and everything, but it's not always possible. So I'm lucky. I've got my home office, and I've always had that since before I had kids, because I need the space. I've got my stuff. You can see it behind me that I don't want them fiddling with. It does have a lock on it, but the lock only works on the outside, so I can stop them coming in if I'm not in there. But if I'm in here, they might turn up. I'm hoping they don't, but it's always a possibility. So not everybody has that. A lot of people don't have that home office, and so what I suggest is to have a space, at least wherever you can carve out space. And even if you can do something as simple as mark it out with washi tape, because that's easy for kids to understand, and possibly your partner as well. That is your space, and nobody puts anything in that space. If anything goes in that space, they don't get it back, because you can't, even if it's a tiny space at the end of the dining table, it has to be yours, and you can't work on your space. And the kids and other people also need to understand that if there's paper there, if there's things on it, on your space and your pens, they can't take those, and they can't scribble on your paper. Because when one of my kids was a baby, I used to have a whiteboard that was propped up on the floor, and he actually rubbed off my things to do with his bottom, because he sort of rubbed up against the whiteboard. So I didn't know what I had to do because he rubbed it off. So I think it's important to communicate clearly with your kids and the other people that you live with, that everything is going to be less stressful if they respect your space and your things, if you don't have a separate space to do it in. And we've talked about time as well, because it is, some people do have extra time now, but if you're homeschooling, you have 6 hours less a day, because that is the time that you are homeschooling. So for me, that's obviously a massive impact, because I work part-time anyway, and I work the hours that the kids were at school, and now I don't do that. So for me, it's a question of trying to do the work that I need to prioritize better, obviously, because I need to just pick, I can't do everything anymore. So I'm just picking the things that are most important. So the most urgent, this is quite good because this is a time, because it's the webinar. So that's quite useful for me, for somebody with ADHD, having someone say, you need to be here and do this thing at this time is quite good, because it helps me go, okay, I need to do that then. And then I need to say, oh, what's the next most important thing? And the next most important thing. And I think within that as well, Mandy touched on this, you need to put in that self-care as well, because it can't just all be an email to this person and a webinar for that person and homeschooling for the kids. You do need, no matter how busy your schedule is, you need that time for yourself. So do exercise every day. I normally do it with the kids now. Kids yoga is very fun, by the way. It's not as hard as adult yoga. There's more songs involved. So I do that. And I also, I've started doing some more learning as well. Just something for me. And I started doing voice training because I'm speaking. And because I'm autistic, I tend to speak in a rather flat tone. So one of the things I started to do, it's only half an hour a week, so it's manageable. But I started doing voice coaching just as something for me to learn, to be better at my job, but also something that's just for me, that's is a one-on-one thing. And I enjoy learning. So it might seem a bit of a weird self-care thing to do, but it's something that actually works for me. And one of the things, I do quite a lot of work-life balance with my clients, because some clients, they do like a side business. So they'll have a day job and they ask me to help them manage their side business. And again, that's a time pressure, and it's a work-life balance thing. I had one client who did sewing, and she had a cat. She had 2 cats and a toddler, so she couldn't leave scissors or ribbons around, because either the kid would play with the scissors, or the cats, they'd pick the ribbons up and go off with them. So again, it was a space thing that we needed to sort out for her. But one of the things I talk to about people with those packed schedules is that if you're tired, you can't do anything. So it doesn't matter if you've got, the entire day stretching ahead with nothing in it, or if you've got half an hour. If you're tired, you can't do anything in that time. So one thing I do encourage people to do is to get good quality sleep. Now, I know a lot of people talk about hours, but that's very, very stressful for some people, especially insomniacs. They go, oh, I haven't got this hour, I've not got enough hours. So one thing I asked an insomniac client to do was to track her sleep and to track the quality. So how you feel when you wake up is more important than whether you've slept 6 hours or 7 hours or 2 hours or whatever it might be. And I find with a lot of people, it's really hard at the moment to put your phone down and go to bed. And I think we need to be strict with ourselves to switch our screens off. I call it Amish time. I know some people have a problem with that term, and it's on my website with the debate. But it basically means turning your screen off an hour before you go to bed. My accountability partner who I work with, she turns the lights down an hour before she goes to bed. So she doesn't have the overhead light on. And in fact, you can do that on a timer. A lot of lights in my house, because I've got ADHD and I've got a really poor sense of time, I have my lights set on a timer. So if I'm in the kitchen, the light will go off when it's time for me to go upstairs. And it's dark, so I do go upstairs. And I used to have fairy lights on a timer in my bedroom that would come on. So when I go into the bedroom, it's a nice calming environment, and I've got my book there and things. And I think a lot of us suffer from bedtime procrastination. And right now it's quite bad, because we're on Twitter, late at night, or we're looking at the news again, or whatever. And I think having ways of tackling that bedtime procrastination is really key to making the next day a little bit better. Even if you've got nothing to do, if you're not feeling tired, whatever you want to do or whatever you need to do is going to be 10 times easier if you've had, it might not be a good night's sleep right now. That's okay. That's, you know, that's where we are. But if you can make it better by doing these little things, you know, preparing yourself to go to bed and trying to get a good night's sleep, that's better than it otherwise would be.
That's really good. That's actually really, really helpful. I've got a page full of notes in front of me. And the good thing is we've got some stuff coming in from Q&A, but not as much. So we can talk, and you guys can sort of chip in on what other people have said. I'm going to start. So technically we'll be doing Q&A from the question board. There's not too much on it at the moment, which is probably helpful for this first practice event almost. But we've talked about the polls, so you know what's come through in terms of a public response to us planning this. But moving on to what we've talked about so far, someone put in the chat a comment about hearing more birds and seeing more stars, and there's less pollution out there, which is lovely. Thanks, Emma, for that. That's a really good comment. What do you guys think of the sort of environment we're living in? You know, there's these new restrictions around how we move around, but the weather's changing, and so that affects people's sleep patterns, that affects people's moods. How do we combine all that with working from home? So any tips for handling spring? I'll start with whoever wants to start.
So my tip would always be get out as much as you can. I know we're allowed one a day, but a lot of us are lucky enough to have gardens or balconies, or even being able to open the windows. You know, there is something so wonderful, and that is a benefit, I think, from working from home, because a lot of offices you can't always open the windows. So, you know, there's a lot of, if you look and you pay attention, there is so much going on in nature at the moment. I am hyper aware this year, and I don't know if it's what's going on or just where I am personally, I don't know, but I would say try and make the most of it. Make the most of the light whenever it works for you. If you're a lark, go out in the morning. If you're an owl, go out. You know, make the most of the lighter evenings. Do what works for you so that you're making the best of the situation.
Yeah, I would say as well, if you even if, sorry, I would just add to that to say, yeah, I completely agree. And to say, even if you're not someone who's used to doing a lot of exercise, try, even if you don't have a Fitbit, so I know it's great for, or you know, or something, other things are available that will track your steps, and try and do the same amount of steps that you would have done in your work day, which I know can be quite hard, but it's a good goal to aim for. So yeah, like you said, lots of people are doing 5, 10 couch to 5K and things like that. But even if that's not achievable for some people, what helped me last week was thinking, right, well, normally I walk half an hour to work and half an hour back every day, and then all of the steps that I walk when I'm at work and all of the other stuff that I do, and just trying to keep that the same, then it's some sort of consistency level, then my exercise levels haven't dropped as much, and then anything else that I can add on as well is fantastic. But I think that gave me, I like a goal, and that gave me something to aim for, to think I'll try not to let it drop. You know, because you can get a lot of that just from around your house, going up and downstairs if you've got stairs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Very good.
I think for me, getting up, sorry.
No. All I was going to ask was about larks and owls, but we'll go around. I wanted to ask, how do you know, if you don't know yet, which of those things you are? I mean, some people might be struggling with that, just working out what their preferences are, because work has driven them to routine. How you found that out, but I'll come back to that, Mandy, when I've had Rachel, if that's all right. Go for it, Rachel.
I was just going to say, I find with the kids in the house, getting up an hour earlier, getting up an hour before the kids do, it's really good. And a lot of people do this, whether they have kids or not, and they find they get twice as much done in the first hour of the day as in the rest of the day, just because it's quiet. And right now with the spring, it's quite nice, you know, with the sun coming up and so on. And you were talking about, you know, if you don't know if you're a lark, diverse people, this new working from home thing, if they've got the flexibility to work the hours they want, if they don't have to go into the office, this can be quite a blessing for them, because some people with autism, for example, they're much better working in the evening and sleeping late, and others others are better working at different times, or they're better at doing different tasks at different times. And if they've got that flexibility now, they can actually use that. And I use a mood tracker. You can get it off my website, where you can actually track how you're feeling, or how productive you are at different times of day. And if you don't know you're in rhythms, you can use this time to work it out.
That's pretty good. Mandy, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I was going to say what Rachel said. Basically, I think a lot of people do know, are they chirpy in the morning, or do they not want to talk to anyone till after about 10:30? Or are they sleepy in the evening, and like me, probably want to happily tucked up in bed by 9 o'clock rather than that. But there are things like mood trackers that I was going to mention that Rachel's obviously pointed to on her website, which can be really good. But as I say, this again goes back to what Kate was talking about at the beginning about let your employer know if you've got an opportunity now to do the flexible working that works for you. If you've always hated that 8 a.m. start and know you're not giving your best, and there's an opportunity for you to do something later in the day and work, sort of 10 till later, then maybe have that conversation, because the more wins we can find for ourselves personally in this situation, the better we're going to cope with it, particularly if it goes on for a longer time.
Yeah, and I think from a business point of view, so I think about, for being a director in a business previously where I had a lot of responsibility for a lot of people, you want to get the best out of them. People will be thinking about that now more than ever. People are looking to leaders to step up and lead, because people need that in a business to secure the business, to secure the customers. So if you can help your team leader by telling them what works for you, try not to feel scared or nervous for doing that, because actually all that people want at the minute is for businesses to keep on doing business as usual, don't they? And so I know I've been talking to people, and they've been not letting on to their employer that they're struggling with the homeschooling, not letting on that they've not got the right facilities at home, and so it's about really trying to be transparent and having that open and honest conversation. And I would really, ask any leaders on the call to be open and make sure that you pin your people down, and find out what's working for them and what isn't, because people are under so much pressure to do everything, aren't they? To be a great teacher, to be a great partner, to still keep in touch with your mum who you might not be able to see, or whatever your family situation is. So if you can be honest about that and come to a workaround with your team leader about what's going to work best, because it's only going to benefit the person and the business.
Okay, I'm trying something quite new here. That was fantastic. I've got someone who's got a question. So we're going to let Claire Marie ask a question. Hopefully I've unmuted her. Let me just try that again. Let's just try that. 1 minute. Let's unmute you.
Hello, Chi, was that me you were talking about there?
Indeed.
Hello, Chi, was that me you were talking about?
It was, and I'm pleased I can hear you, and thank you for all your tips around my volume. I shall fix that for next time, but fire away, you've got a question, we're listening.
So say that last bit again, go ahead.
I said fire, you've got a question, we're all listening, fire away.
Yeah, so I just want to share with everybody actually what I'm doing right now. So I'm listening to you on a headset, I'm frying eggs for my 11-year-old, I'm watching my 12-year-old or my 17-year-old watching something dodgy on telly, but he's quiet, so I'm going to leave him. But what I find most useful about what you're saying is sort of about relaxing the objectives for yourself, and just cutting yourself some slack. And have any of you got any examples of where you've cut yourself a little bit of slack? I mean, again, I saw a comment yesterday or the day before, somebody said, I feel the pressure that after 12 weeks I'm going to have to come out being really skinny and having lost weight and in really good health and knowing how to do yoga as well as homeschool all my kids. So I'm just wondering, and you were talking about the steps every day. I mean, I've actually relaxed my 10,000 steps a day target to 5,000.
Yeah.
And that has taken a look. I know it sounds a really small thing, but that has taken a real pressure off me. So I still have a target, but it's a bit more realistic for the days that I can't get out of the house.
That's brilliant. And I think you're right about any way and I don't obviously, I don't want to be like gender specific, but I think a lot of us as working mums put so much pressure on ourselves anyway. So like you say, now if we're expected to come out looking like a supermodel and everything else, and your garden's done because you've been in and everything else. So I think for me, anything that people can do and to take pressure off themselves is fantastic. I think my children are in the 20s, so I'm not having to deal with the homeschool thing, but I think what if anyone can to get into perspective that this period of time won't impact massively their education, you know, in the future, it's all about just what can you do and just doing what you can do. And if that's a couple of hours, or if they're doing something else that isn't on the national curriculum but they're happy, and you know they'll still be learning about different types of things, then I'd say that's absolutely great. The more that people can begin to think like that is brilliant, and that's what everyone should be aiming to, and supporting each other within that, you know, reaching out. Like I say, as we've been having, I've been as part of my business every day, just on putting online that there's a drop-in call for people at 11 o'clock. So just drop in. People have just been chatting about anything that they're struggling with. Just you know, not for the people that work for me, I'm just a startup, but for anyone else to join. To just because when you hear what other people are struggling with, it puts everything into perspective, doesn't it? Otherwise, you think everyone else absolutely nailing it, but no one's feeling like they're nailing it at the minute. So yeah.
That's really good. That was
Yeah.
a fantastic question, Claire Marie, and she's muted herself back, which is amazing. Stellar example. There a great couple questions through in the Q&A, and a comment through from Natalie, actually, who basically said, look, at the moment, you know, we're not going to get homeschooling perfect anyway. Most people are just doing what they need to do. And Kate, you literally picked up that point and said it as I read through her comment. There's a really good question on how you spot anxiety and stress in employees or work colleagues when we're working from home. So we'll stay on you for this, Kate, if that's all right.
So,
how do you do that?
So I think, so you can either, there are tools out there, you know, and I obviously have one, I'm not trying to sell it to anyone, there are lots of other tools out there where you can get people to click how they're feeling. So on ours, on Engage Your People, you can click for people to feel isolated, so they can you know, alert you to that during their monthly one-to-one. But for me, I just think it's got to be about regular communication. I think if you know the people that work for you and you know the people that are on your team and you're having regular communication with them, you know, and that can be face-to-face like this, or it can just be on a call. And by just letting them talk and listening to what they're saying, if you're a team leader in Engage Your People, you'll be able to sense that, you know, and you can ask them questions about what have they been doing with the day, and how they're coping, and what have they got on, and hopefully get them to open up. There's lots of people obviously who have mental health first aiders in the business, and I would say if you don't have them, it's a good time now to get them trained and get people trained. Obviously it can all be done online, and I would really be looking at the recognized sources out there from companies like Mind. But I think, you know, you'll be able to tell, I think, by the tone of voice, by people, the things that they're sending you, you know, if people go offline and they're not communicating a lot and they normally would, or whether if people are over communicating with you. These are things that you'll be able to pick up. And I think it's just about, as a team leader, no matter how busy you are, it's really putting in that extra time to get your people to understand. Because people, if they're not used to suffering from anxiety, they might not understand why they're feeling so overwhelmed, or why they can't sleep anymore, you know. So I think it's just about all the time is having those open conversations and saying that you're open, you know, open so that they can contact you at any point.
And I think, just to add to that, I think one of the other things that's a really good way in is share how you feel as a manager and a team leader when you're talking. You know, be vulnerable yourself, because that gives other people permission to be vulnerable. So if you come in and think you've got to put a really brave face on it and make it look like you're absolutely bossing it, and to Claire Marie's point, you know, you're going to be coming out a stone lighter having achieved some yoga black belt and, you know, maxed everything else, then people are going to not feel like they can share. So I would make it as easy as possible by introducing the topics and having an open conversation.
Yeah, and buddying people up as well, I think's good. I think if you don't have, like, if some people have cultural ambassadors already in place, and getting people to, maybe if they won't speak to you as a leader, getting them to maybe speak to someone else in the organisation, you know, a teammate who they might feel more comfortable talking about, who can feel and they can share their experiences. Yeah.
And some places have a workplace counsellor as well, don't they?
Yeah, and you can also get
So
that on your EAP scheme, can't you?
yeah, so I think it's a good idea to offer someone else to speak to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
outside the
with
company.
Rachel, I apologise. There's a couple of buzzwords that, but they're not buzzwords. They're words that seem to be quite common in work environments now, but are new to me. So, mental health first aider. I've not been introduced to anyone like that at work. I met one at the Digital City Festival space, because someone set out to actually have someone in there that did that role. But how do people become familiar with these resources now if their employees don't actually have them? How do they start getting those things put in place?
I think there's lots of things online. I think Able Futures, for anyone taking notes, Able Futures is a really good organisation that can come and work with your workplace for free. I think, if you know, Mind, I would always use Mind as a first port of call. I think the Samaritans have got some absolutely fantastic you know, stuff out there that people can just adapt and adopt for their businesses. I think there's schemes like the This Is Me scheme, which it goes back to what Mandy was saying, which is all about openly talking about mental health and mental well-being, and talking about, you know, your own challenges that you've had, being authentic in the workplace and getting other people to open up. So I think that there's lots of things, there's lots of recognised resources. I'm not any, you know, mental health professional or anything like that, but there are, so I wouldn't, you know, want to give advice myself too much, but there's a lot online for people who are mental health professionals that you can bring into your workplace for very, you know, it's not going to cost a lot, and a lot of it just goes back to open, honest and transparent communication.
That's fantastic. Just touching on, there's another question in the Q&A around how someone's just started a new role, but everyone's working remotely, how you build relationships in that type of environment. I've also got one, it's related to this, and I think I'm becoming more aware that my cultural upbringing has affected how I bring myself to work, you know, what I take to work and how I communicate at work. And so, are there any tips you guys have for how you cope with people from different backgrounds who have different approaches to sort of expectations at work and what they communicate about themselves at work? Because I'm conscious, you know, if you want to put it this way, the sort of immigrant community, if you want to put it that way, have very different focuses around, you know, get a good education, get a job, stay in that job, and take your best working self to work. How do you deal with that in this environment where you're asking people to ask for help before they need it? And how do we start accommodating people like that, people who have that sort of mindset? It's a bit of a big one, and build relationships for work at work when you're working remotely. How do you start doing that?
Well, in the neurodiverse community, we talk about bringing your whole self to work. You were talking about your best workplace, but we talk about bringing your whole self to work. And I think what you're saying is interesting about immigrants, because one thing we suggest for managers to manage autistic people is to explain unwritten rules, because autistic people don't always know how to behave in a workplace, the same as somebody from another culture. I mean, we're not just from another culture. Some of us feel like we're from another planet. So if you explain the unwritten rules of the workplace culture and the workplace etiquette to everybody, whether they're neurodiverse or an immigrant or whatever, you're helping everybody, because there's going to be neurotypical people who are just from down the road who will benefit from that information as well.
Brilliant, that's actually really helpful. This is helping me, but anybody else, carry on.
Yeah, and
Go on. No, you go.
I was going to say, I totally agree with Rachel, and I think it's as relevant for neurodiverse people as it, you know, even within your team, you'll have introverts and extroverts, and I'm sure good managers have devised ways to tell in a face-to-face situation when the introvert has got something to say but isn't comfortable saying it. So I would trust your instincts as a manager if it's a team that you know really well. If it's a new team and a team you don't know really well, put some time into it. Have one-to-ones with people in a medium that they feel comfortable with. So I always ask people, do you want video or do you want phone? Because some people are very happy in this situation. For some people it's their worst nightmare, and they're going to spend, they're going to devote 80% of their brain to just looking at themselves on the screen, and you're going to get 20% of them. So, ask them what they want, ask them what they need from you as a manager in this situation, and devote a bit of time. But just be, if you have a process in your face-to-face of going around the room and checking you've had input from everybody to help people, then do that now. Don't drop all those things that made you a good face-to-face manager. Just work out how you got to adapt them slightly.
Yeah. I think every organisation knows that they need diversity in it. In order to achieve diversity, you need to achieve inclusion first, don't you? But I think every organisation, so many studies are out there. I talk about it all the time when I talk at events. Make better decisions, have better businesses, are more successful and more profitable if they have diverse voices in the room. So it's about, convincing those people who might be a little bit less reluctant to speak out that their voices are valued, and that's what's needed in a modern workplace. And as to pick up quickly on the question that you asked about, how is someone who's new now going to settle into the business, I think again that's got to be around having rigorous, consistent communication, which sounds dead boring, but just keeping it so that people know when they're going to meet up with the team virtually, getting them just like you would in an office, having that regular informal chat, but having it diarised in and making sure that they know who to go to for what they need. Whoever asks the question, if they want to reach out to me, separately off this call, I can help them. I used to run an induction process for new people at the business where I worked, so I'd be happy to give you some tips on that.
That's fantastic. We're running out of time. It's been amazing. And I will say we're looking at doing another one of these, and we're looking at doing it around fitness, which we should be doing. But I guess this forum's actually set out for me a nice pattern for improving my working self. And so hopefully, if all four of us are in agreement, we will meet up again and do a follow-on on remote working. And this is on the assumption that we might be doing stuff on keeping fit and becoming a yoga black belt by the end of July at the next one. But the next event will be on the 20th of April. Put that in your diaries. And I guess what I want to say is ask people if they want to still continue the conversation. We've got a question board which lets you post in questions, and we will all be able to respond to them on Twitter after this. So if anybody put their hand up but wasn't able to get their question answered, please carry on. We've also got a Slack channel, thank you Natalie, that we want people to connect with on there. So you'll be able to obviously put links into any of the resources you mentioned, like Mind and Able Features. You can probably tell from watching me, I'm writing away as I listen to you guys, but it's been so good just for myself, and I happen to organize it. I'm sure we don't want to do it again. So on the last minute, I just want to say a big thank you to Kate Wood, Mandy Sinclair, Rachel Morgan Trimmer for speaking to us. This has been recorded, by the way, so we can watch it going forward, and hopefully we will meet again in the next few weeks and have this happen all over again. Thank you guys so much.